Was the outcome in Fulton County called into question because of the improper procedures?
Well, no, because they didn't.
Well, no. Yeah. Okay. So that's it. That's it. Not their outcome was not called into question at all. They still certified that Biden won, right?
Right. But
okay. So that's it. That's it.
That's it. Oh, it's going.
You agree?
Nice afternoon in the rain.
Oh, lovely. You agree or disagree?
I just got here, so I don't even know what we're talking about.
The prompt is Donald Trump is anti-American.
And what is your what's your argument for this?
That I think he shows contempt for the Constitution and the idea of holding fair elections. I can go into depth. Obviously, that's like bearing the lead a little bit, or bearing the details. But I can go into detail if you want.
Right. Go ahead. Elaborate a little bit.
Yeah. So, the way that Donald Trump treated the 2020 election with trying to get it illegally overturned, I think was unhinged and very authoritarian and against the idea of how our elections run. And the tweet where he floated terminating the Constitution to rerun the 2020 election, I feel like was insane, and nobody talks about that. And then him trying to say that he's going to end birthright citizenship via executive action in direct violation of the Constitution, I think is enough to say that he's probably not super for the Constitution, and he's definitely against the way that our elections run.
Did you look, or what exactly did he do that was unconstitutional in the 2020 election, other than questioning the results?
So there's this piece of legislation called the Electoral Count Act, and it lays out the way that Congress certifies electors and the way that they count the Electoral College votes to gavel the winner on January 6th. And what Donald Trump did is he tried to submit fraudulently assembled electors, and he tried to pressure Mike Pence to replace the Electoral College votes that the state certified with the ones that Donald Trump fraudulently sent in, which would in turn allow Mike Pence to unilaterally choose the winner of the election.
I thought you were more referring to the January 6th ordeal.
Well, that kind of played a part in it, because whenever Mike Pence said that he wouldn't actually do that because it's insane, Donald Trump was like throwing a bunch of like crazy like pot shots at him in the J6 ellipse speech, and that's why the people who did end up breaking into the Capitol were looking to, unalive Mike Pence.
Well, I mean, you have seen that now. We know that over I believe it was 29 FBI agents were there that were actually going into the Capitol.
So okay, I'm not gonna be too mean because you seem like you're good faith, but so that report showed that there were, I think it was 26 confidential human sources. So that doesn't mean FBI agents. That means people who have given information to the FBI. So that could just be any person that they got to flip up on one of their extremist groups. That's a confidential human service or servant.
So a confidential informant.
Yeah. So they're FBI informants, not agents. And only two of them were greenlit to go to the Capitol as well, and none of them were greenlit to break any laws on January 6th. They were explicitly told not to.
I mean, there's videos showing, guys that were being let in, being unhandcuffed. I remember there's this one where like a guy was breaking a window or trying to break a window or something. He's like, "Let's go in there."
Mm-hmm.
A bunch of guys got around him, told him, "No, let's not do that." But aside from going down that rabbit hole, so I live in Florida, and I remember when, who was it, Bush and Al Gore, that's who it was. And Bush questioned the election, and they did a recount in Florida, and then Bush won Florida instead of losing it, which I guess was like the turning point of the election.
Yeah.
So how is it different to question it? Not to mention, now we can look at, I believe that every election that we've recorded has had about 190 to 200 million voters, and for some reason in 2020 we had 230 something million voters.
So the thing that makes what George Bush did and Donald Trump did different is that George Bush actually did go through the legal routes to challenge the election, and he did end up coming out the winner through legal processes. That's fine. What Donald Trump was doing was pressuring the vice president to break federal law in the counting process. He was trying to usurp the law in order to make himself the president again, instead of using legal routes to get recounts.
But I don't understand how questioning it and wanting to go through,
because
whatever.
the problem wasn't Donald Trump questioning it. That wasn't the problem with what Donald Trump did. You're allowed to question the election. You're not allowed to, you're not allowed to try and break the law in order to get it overturned. That's a completely different question.
What law was he trying to break is what I'm asking.
The Electoral Count Act. Because the Electoral Count Act lays out a process by which electors are introduced onto the floor, and then the two halves of Congress break off to debate any objection that they would make to that elector, and then they come back, and then the vice president defers to Congress as to whether to certify or decertify those electors. But what Donald Trump was trying to do is try to get Mike Pence to do that unilaterally without deferring to Congress, which would break the Electoral Count Act.
I don't see how, but I don't understand how asking him to go through this act, using this count act.
No, break the Electoral Count Act. He was asking him to break the Electoral Count Act.
Where and when?
On the count January 6th by ignoring what is laid out in the Electoral Count Act, which piece by piece lays out the process by which electors are objected to. He wanted to usurp the power of Congress to object and certify or decertify electors, and put that power solely in the hands of the vice president so he could make the determination alone as to who is the president.
The vice president doesn't choose that, though, anyways. I get what you're saying about
You're right.
certifying the electors, or the votes, I guess, per each state, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you wanting to put a hold on certifying them in order to bring in question, whether or not that there was fraud happening.
You're right in that the vice president doesn't have that power, but Donald Trump and his lawyers were arguing that he does, and they was trying to get vice president to use that power that he doesn't even have.
That doesn't make any sense. So he's
You're
arguing.
right. You're right, because it's completely it doesn't make sense, and that's why Vice President Pence didn't go through with it, is because putting the fate of our elections in the vice president's hand makes no sense. But that's what they were asking him to do. Donald Trump and his lawyer John Eastman were the two ones that were having meetings with him, asking him to go through with breaking the Electoral Count Act to unilaterally certify or decertify electors.
Well, I believe that maybe he was trying to decertify them, believing that there was bad faith happening.
But
right?
that's not the vice president's job, and they were saying that it was.
Well, whose job is it?
Congress, or the state. So what happens is that the electors are certified by the state's legislature, or no, by the governors, I think. It's different from state to state, but most of them are certified by the governor, and then they're sent off to the joint session on January 6th, where they can object to electors, and then they separate into their respective chambers and debate whether or not to uphold or reject that objection. And they were asking Mike Pence to unilaterally decertify the ones that the governors certified and certify the fraudulent ones that Donald Trump submitted.
Right. So he's trying to make sure that they are not certified in order to ask the question, was there fraud? Can we investigate this?
No,
And
in
at
order
the time-
in order to certify Donald Trump's already assembled electors. So there would be no investigation. It would just be that Donald Trump won.
And that's just not how that works, though. Like,
You're right, but that's the problem, is that Donald Trump was trying to get them to do that, even though that's not how it works. Because you're not allowed to fraudulently submit electors, and the idea that you could take uncertified electors and just unilaterally certify them as the vice president is anti-American.
That's fair. I agree with you if all of that is true. I just don't see it that way, in the sense of like asking for a recount or an investigation in the sense.
But that's him asking for investigations and recounts wasn't the problem. That has nothing to do with the electoral counting process on January 6th. Because he was completely allowed to get recounts. He was completely allowed to get audits.
It was the intent to have Mike Pence count the count the electors rather than, I I guess, to count his electors
Mhm.
rather than overturn Joe Biden's victory.
To overturn the electors that certified Joe Biden's victory in favor of Donald Trump's uncertified electors.
Right. But could you not argue the fact that when you're certifying something, you're then claiming that they are free and fair when there's been evidence that it wasn't? So you're trying to kind of put a hold on it in order to have it investigated.
So there's two parts to that. The first one is that the time to do that was prior to January 6th, and that the power to investigate the election, it lays completely outside of the vice president's hands. So asking the vice president to do it is still an abuse of power. And then second off, none of there was no promising leads that any of the elections had been rigged like that, and there's still now there's no evidence that it was rigged anyway. So I mean,
What are you talking about? There's been, I mean, I know in Arizona and Georgia, I mean, I've heard of, I can't tell you the exact stories of what happened there, but I have heard of things.
I'm sure you've heard of things, and I've heard of things too,
I
but
know
none of
for a
them.
fact in Florida, in Marion County, because every election we have Marion County popping up with some type of like weird count of like coming up with like, they come up with like more votes than are even in like their district or in the county rather.
So I think
Uh,
this is the problem, is that Donald Trump was really good at telling people believable stories about how the election was rigged, but none of them actually showed any rigging of the election or any
well, no,
improprieties.
this happened in Florida, so like I'm local to it. So I heard it from like from like local news sources and stuff like that.
And it's possible that there was some impropriety in that specific district in Florida, but not
Right.
not anything outcome determinative, and not anything. Also, Florida wasn't one of the states that Donald Trump tried to submit fraudulent electors for anyway, because he won that state. So
Well, I agree, and Florida's like always red, but for
right,
whatever
so
reason, this
but
particular county, and I mean, there's other counties, but this is like a big one that has a big problem with it.
But the problem is that no one can actually point to what was done wrong. So, like, even in Maricopa County or in Antrim County or in any of the counties that they were trying to focus on to claim fraud, none of those got upheld in court. None of the watchdog agencies that investigated it found anything. None of the agencies that Donald Trump paid to find fraud found anything. None of the state investigators found anything. None of the state legislatures recalled their electors. That there was nothing to recertify. It was already certified according to the process.
Oh, Obama did win Florida, didn't he?
But the point is that Donald Trump didn't want to. If he actually had concerns about fraud, he would have been making challenges in Florida. He would have been making challenges in Florida, but he was making challenges in Arizona and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and all the states that he lost.
Well, right, but what I'm saying is that I know for like I know that there's fraud happening with elections, right, within my state, anyways, which tells me that it's possible for there to be fraud in other places as well. And I know for a fact that I watched plenty of videos of like, and not like on the news or whatever, just like quick things on like people's Snapchats and stuff of ballots being brought in at 2 o'clock in the morning.
That's complete. This is exactly the point. That's completely normal. The reason that people think that it was fraudulent is because they don't know how the votes are counted, which is fine. But why would you defer to, oh, well, I know some fraud happened in my county, so I'm going to assume that the whole country's election was fraud, even though there's nobody that actually found that fraud, instead of just like learning how the process works. Like the reason that ballots were coming in at like 3 a.m., like a lot of Trump supporters like to say, is because mail-in ballots they take a while to come in, and they have to be centralized into a place where they have enough counters to actually count them. So they get shipped off from the county that they got turned into to a different county to count them. It's a completely normal process. There was no fraud in any of the mail-in ballots.
So what's your argument why there's 30 million more votes in the 2020 election versus 2024? Or
It's probably just that people were more motivated to vote in the last election than this election.
Or is it possible that it's too easy to get a mail-in ballot for anybody in a household or at an address?
No, it's
But-
not easy. It's not easy.
Well,
It
the
is
ease of
absolutely, because I got a mail-in ballot.
but the problem
To
is
get
that the
them
ease of access to mail-in ballots is completely irrelevant. None of them were fraudulently submitted
How do you know that?
because no one ever found that they were fraudulently submitted.
Because no one ever certified that they were fraudulent.
Because
Like,
because all of the investigators found no evidence.
who investigated anything? The only person
Everybody,
that-
every state legislature. There's a reason that before the fraudulent electors were submitted, Donald Trump filed 62 lawsuits to challenge the election in the swing states.
Yo, Jimmy Carter just died.
Really?
What?
Yeah,
Oh shit!
I'm not kidding. Holy shit.
What happened?
Jimmy Carter died.
Well, I mean,
I can't be too mad. He's
He
like
was like
1,000,
100.
but yeah, like
it's like 100. I mean,
the fact of the matter
definitely
is,
in a better place.
the fact of the matter is that 2020 was the absolutely most litigated election in American history. Everybody was investigating this election. If there was any impropriety with how the votes were counted, especially when Donald Trump is asking for it, you would think that any of the MAGA people would even claim to find anything, but no
Well,
investigator
absolutely.
found
Think
anything.
that. But when the people that are within like the ABC agencies, like your FBI, who would be doing said investigating are against
No.
you, and you think that they're maybe gonna overlook some things.
The FBI and the DOJ aren't even responsible for finding fraud. It's all of the state legislatures
By the way, the judges that
or investigators.
What?
the judges that Trump took the cases to, 17 of which he appointed and 33 of which were all Republicans.
Yeah, so they would have direct incentive to find fraud, but they didn't. And all of the state investigators have no bias against who wins the are you seriously saying that PA is so biased against Donald Trump that their state investigators were going to cover up any evidence of fraud just so he wouldn't win?
I'm saying that there are people within the government, in all of the government, that are so radicalized, one way or the other, that yes, they would cover up things and they would cheat.
But you realize that the
who's
conspiracy that you're asserting is that Pennsylvania state investigators lied to keep Donald Trump out of power, and Wisconsin, and Arizona, and Michigan, and then the DOJ all were biased against Trump, was backing them up in order to make sure that they didn't find any fraud. And all of the independent companies and watchdogs that the Trump campaign hired to find fraud were all secretly against him too, and decided to not report any of that. Like, if there was such a huge conspiracy to keep Donald Trump out of office, one, why even vote in elections? And two, why did he win in 2016 and in 2024? Why wouldn't they just do it again?
Okay, because in 2016, nobody thought he would win. They all thought Hillary was a shoo-in. And then they came out, and they weren't prepared to cheat. Then 2020, they were prepared to cheat, right? But then in 2024, they just couldn't out-cheat what was there.
That doesn't make any sense. Donald Trump didn't even get over 50% of the vote. They could absolutely.
Yes, he did.
No, he didn't. He got like 49.7 or some shit like that.
In this one, in 2024?
Yes.
He didn't get the
I
majority.
am 100% certain that he got.
Look it up, dog. Look it up, dog. He didn't get over 50%.
Google it.
Yep, he got 49.9% of the votes, meaning he did not get the majority of Americans' votes.
So to act like it was like such a blowout landslide victory when he couldn't even get over 50% of the vote, they could absolutely rig that. But for some reason they were able to rig the election
You're right.
so well in 2020. But then in 2024, even after the attempted insurrection, they decided he wasn't a big enough deal to rig it against him this time. Like that, this conspiracy doesn't make any sense. Why would we not just defer to the investigators?
Votes in 2020, and then now there's back down to what
Why would we not just defer to the investigators that actually know how the process works instead of just vaguely posturing to conspiracies because we don't know how they count ballots?
People in Marion County, Florida, get to
Marion County, Florida wasn't even a battleground state. It does like it's.
I'm using it for an example. What I'm saying is that county, every fucking election, there's some type of bullshit going on. Where 2 days later, we didn't find all these other votes, and
You realize, well, first of all, that would be taken into account at the final. There's a reason that the election happens in November and it's certified in January. First of all, that's because there's time to investigate stuff like that. But also, why are you extrapolating the findings of a county in Florida to say that the entire country's election was rigged?
But what I'm bringing about is the fact that it is possible, right? So
It was possible, but no one found it. No one, like, there's no evidence of it.
I mean, is there fucking gold in your backyard because you didn't find it? Like, I don't understand what you're saying.
Would I assume that there's gold in my backyard if I didn't find it?
Have you looked for it?
They did look for it. They did look for it. The 2020 election was the most litigated election in American history. So if I dug up my entire backyard looking for gold and there was no gold, there's probably not any gold.
But you didn't look. That's my point.
They did. Every state investigator looked. The DOJ, the FBI, all looked. 62 lawsuits litigated it to look.
There were emeralds in Elon's backyard.
Dude, you're talking about me bringing in 3 separate excavating companies to look through my backyard in order to find gold, and I didn't find any, but I still think there's gold for some reason, and I'm trying to use it to inflate my property values. Like, this doesn't make any sense.
I mean, either way, my point is not that you need to bring excavators into your yard.
But we did.
My point being is that the people investigating can also be corrupt because there's corruption here that I've seen.
But you're talking about corruption across the entire country. You're talking about every single state and the federal government.
Out of 50, that's not that many. We know the federal government's corrupt.
You're talking about every state and the federal government all being rigged against Donald Trump so hard in 2020, but not in 2024 for some reason.
I think that it still was, but they couldn't rig it enough. Maybe you didn't have COVID with your voting ballots.
Okay, so Rhino, you realize
less voters in 2020.
Rhino, you realize that there's nothing that could ever change your mind on this, right? You are dead set on there being fraud, and there's nothing that I could ever show you to say that there wasn't fraud, just because you think that the governments are corrupt.
That's not true. I didn't say that. What I'm saying
but there is nothing, because I can.
There's a lady that went to jail in Arizona.
There's nothing. I can point to you every state legislature saying, hey, there was no fraud. Every state investigator saying, hey, there was no fraud. The DOJ, the FBI, the DHS saying, hey, there was no fraud. 62 lawsuits filed by the Trump campaign that all came back with goose eggs saying there was no fraud. And for some reason, you're just going to say, oh, but they're corrupt. And then just say there was fraud anyway. There's nothing that I could ever show you.
That's not true. That's not what I said.
That's not what you said, but it's so clear. Like, can you name one?
That's not what I'm.
What could I show you? What could I show you to say there was no fraud?
Went to jail. The lady in Arizona that went to jail for, she was investigating the mail-in ballots or something along those lines. I don't remember exactly what it was. Mm-hmm. But essentially, it was questioning the election. I don't know. Google Arizona election, fucking jail or something. I don't know. I can hear you typing. So I don't have a laptop.
Yeah, you're good. Wait, oh my god, wait, hold on. Wait, describe what you're talking about real quick.
The lady that was like, she was like, what the fuck was she doing? She was like, questioning or trying to investigate what the ballot machines were doing whenever they were counting them, something like that. She was trying to prove that they, or she found that they were connected to Wi-Fi or something along those lines. And she I don't know if she actually went to jail but she was like going to court for it last time I heard about it.
It's because she didn't have access to those machines. Breaking into and hacking machines in order to find cases of fraud is illegal, obviously. So you're going to go to jail for that.
Okay. And then, right, she did find that they were connected to the internet.
Did she actually?
Yes. I remember that part. But I didn't know what she did illegally.
Arizona voting machines connected to internet.
There we go. Oh shit! Is this my county again? No, it's Maricopa County.
Yeah, Maricopa County is the one in
I was like,
Arizona.
God, no, I didn't see like the whole thing yet. I was like, God damn it! I was like, where's the lady's name? Anyways, but while I was searching this, I also theft of device. Yeah, that's what I wanted. Arizona woman gets 30 days in jail for ballot harvesting.
Yeah, obviously.
Woman charged in fake Arizona elector case pleads
Which
guilty.
was which, by the way, that was at the direction of Trump.
Utah
Anything
County
you see saying
sentenced
fake
for her
elector,
roles in ballot harvesting scheme.
anything you see saying fake elector, that's in relation to Donald Trump.
That's just what the title is. I'm just reading it to you.
Because Donald Trump assembled fraudulent electors in Arizona to try and get the results overturned.
No, this is ballot harvesting.
Ballot harvesting.
Yeah, where like I don't know, you go help like an old folks home. Oh, let me help you guys vote. And you you help them request in their mail-in ballots. Then you go back and you help them fill it out, but in poor faith. You're like, all right, Grandpa. He's like, oh, what day is it? And you're like, you're voting for Joe Biden, right? He's like, what? And you're like, okay, perfect. Sign here.
Okay, so here's what you were talking about. Is that some of the voting machines were found to be connected to the internet so they could give voting results sooner to news precincts. None of them were found to have been hacked. None of them have found to been hacked. None of them was found to be flipping votes. Nothing was found by anybody. It was just found that they were connected to the internet to display votes quicker.
Anything connected to the internet can be hacked.
Oh my god.
There's no evidence of it, though.
What the fuck would the evidence be?
That it was hacked. That we saw votes that were submitted and then flipped. That's what the evidence would be.
Yeah, but you'd have to do a hand count. That's what we had to do.
We did do hand counts. We did. And they actually, I'm pretty sure the one that we did in Arizona, made Biden's vote total higher than it was prior to the hand recount.
In Arizona. Did they re-hand count Arizona?
I don't know if it was Arizona or Georgia, but it was one of those two states.
Like, either way, all I'm saying is that like my trust in it is not there, right? Obviously,
but your trust in it. This is the problem: is that your trust isn't in it because Donald Trump was lying to you. All of these claims that you were making, are the same exact ones. Are the same exact ones that Donald Trump.
County not performed. Grand
County doesn't it kind of bring up a red flag for you that all of these were either dismissed. All of these were either dismissed in court in front of Trump-appointed judges or not brought to court because it wasn't going to prove anything.
Okay, listen, but my point is that you just keep arguing that there was no fraud, right?
I'm saying that there wasn't outcome determinative fraud. There wasn't enough fraud to justify throwing the election results away.
But it wasn't.
Yes, there's always some fraud in every single election. That's not a concession.
A little bit of fraud.
Yes, always.
Okay. Literally, I have the list of Arizona here, and it's going down, and it's like not performed, and then like some are completed and passed, and then not performed, completed, passed. It looks like it's about 50-50.
Did we need a hand recount in every single precinct in Arizona?
I honestly think that we need a hand recount, not a recount. It should just be fucking hand count off the rip in the beginning. I want a live stream. Like, I want to be able to pull it up on YouTube, check in on whatever county, whatever, wherever you live. You should be able to watch your votes being counted. Shouldn't be no secrecy.
There should be no secrecy in who votes for who?
Well, obviously you don't want people's name on them, but I'm saying like...
Well, how are we going to live stream the counting of ballots without the name on it?
I didn't work out the logistics of it yet. I just came up with it.
So you're saying that we can't trust the election results until we do this thing that you're just throwing off. Like, there's nothing that could ever prove... There's nothing that could ever prove election fraud to you. There's never, ever.
Or not prove election fraud.
Yes, or prove that the election wasn't fraudulent.
Right, there you go. That's what we're trying to get to. Right? No, I'm not saying that there's nothing that could prove that to me.
That's basically what you're saying.
But you're also saying that you agree with me that there was election fraud. You're just saying that there wasn't that much.
That it wasn't outcome determinative. It wasn't a justification for Donald Trump to try and throw the election results out and just make himself the president again.
I mean, okay, so we're just arguing about how much election fraud happened.
Yes, obviously. Do you think that I was actually saying that there wasn't one fraudulent vote out of like fucking millions and millions?
That's what I thought you were saying.
Oh my god.
How? Do you think? Okay.
Agree.
Okay. So I've read into exactly who investigated what election and how the electoral counting process works, and you actually think that I thought that all fucking hundreds of millions of votes were accurately counted 100%. That's what you actually thought.
You were saying there was no you said no election fraud. That is a definitive thing.
Okay.
Am I wrong?
Yes. Because I don't think that anybody would actually. Yeah. When we talk about no election fraud, it's obviously no outcome determinative election fraud. I'm obviously saying that Donald Trump claiming that there was election fraud enough to overturn the results of the election was insane, and you haven't provided anything to the contrary. That's it.
I just did.
No, you haven't, because
it was definitive, right? I don't know how much election fraud was there. All I'm saying is that there was election fraud.
Yeah, no shit. You haven't proven that it was enough. Okay, so okay, Rhino, do you think that Donald Trump had justification to unilaterally throw out electors because there were a couple of miscounted ballots?
I would like to see where he was throwing out electors.
Okay.
Versus
look up the
hold on it in order to recount it. Like we did in the past.
Yeah, give me 1 second. Also, we've never put a hold on the electoral counting process. That's just not true.
We recounted Florida. I remember.
We recounted Florida before January 6th.
I mean, I don't remember the fucking timeline on it.
No one has ever delayed the January the joint session to certify the electors. That's never happened.
Right.
And which, by the way, also breaks the Electoral Count Act. That would also break the Electoral Count Act, just to be clear.
Secretary. Yeah. You look up Fulton County, Georgia, please.
Oh my God.
His secretary?
Well, I heard you being his secretary, so I employed my own. Because I know you can't get out of your. If you go out of the app on here, it'll kick you out or whatever.
Okay, so. Here are the 3 things that John Eastman proposed to Donald Trump. A. VP Pence opens ballots, receives objections to the 7 states with multiple ballots, 2 bodies adjourn to their separate chambers, and decide which states' electors to count. This is how the process works already. This was Eastman explaining to Donald Trump how the process is supposed to work, according to the Electoral Count Act.
Okay, go ahead.
And then he says Biden wins 306 to 232 electoral votes. Option B, VP Pence opens ballots, determines on his own which is valid, asserting the authority to make that decision under the 12th Amendment, and the Adams and Jefferson precedents is his alone. Anything in the Electoral Count Act is contrary, therefore, and unconstitutional. And to this, he says Trump wins. So that's what I was laying out, that Vice President alone chooses the validity of the electors.
Right. Okay.
Or VP Pence determines that there's ongoing election challenges that must conclude before ballots can be counted and adjourns the joint session, which has never happened before in U.S. history and is also outside of the Electoral Count Act.
Right, but it sounds like that it is an option.
No, it is not an option because he openly says that this would break the procedure laid out in the Electoral Count Act.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, so he was going against the Electoral Count Act. Ow.
Yes. On the grounds that it would be later ruled unconstitutional.
Okay. All right, fine. I mean, I'll take the L on that one. That's fair.
Okay, so I'm going to ask my question again then, though.
Yeah.
Do you think a couple fraudulent electors, or a couple not fraudulent electors, do you think a couple fraudulent ballots justifies Donald Trump asking his vice president to throw out electors?
I don't know.
Really?
Like the way that I'm saying, like the way that I'm viewing it, anyways, is that you're not saying that they shouldn't count. Is that you're putting a hold on it, but you're saying that because it's not been done before, you shouldn't hold it till after January 6th. I do also have just furthering the fraud that was happening. That Fulton County, Georgia, was found.
I know everything about Fulton County.
Improper procedures.
Yeah. Was the outcome in Fulton County called into question because of the improper procedures?
Well, no, because they didn't.
Well,
find
no.
out
Yeah. Okay. So that's it. Not their outcome was not called into question at all. They still certified that Biden won, right?
Right. But
okay. So that's it. That's it.
Nobody
investigated
it until later.
They had 2 months of investigations, dog.
They didn't investigate it.
They did. There were hand counts before January 6th.
No, I got it right here.
I don't know what you have. There was absolutely hand counts before January 6th.
Uh-oh. Is that me?
That was me. It's a thing that TikTok does to make sure that I'm not just content farming. I had to do like a verification to prove I was real.
Oh, cool. All right. It sounded like I had like I don't know. It was
like a ringtone.
Well, you're sitting on a glass table, and it was like projecting weirdly. I was like looking around. I'm like, what the fuck?
Okay.
Anyways, all right.
Yeah.
So moving on. What? I don't think that that's un-American asking about an election.
No,
obviously, there was fraud.
Don't simplify it like that. What is un-American is asking the vice president to throw out election results.
I don't look at it like he was trying to throw out election results.
Then you're not looking at it like he was asking what you're not looking at what he was asking Mike Pence to do.
I mean, but there was proven election fraud later. It took him 4 years to find it. I mean, I get what you're saying. That
okay.
The way you're at it is that he wanted him to not count these states.
Well, if we've walked back to the point where you think it's justified for Donald Trump to ask Mike Pence to throw out election results because we found a couple fraudulent ballots, that's fine. That didn't affect the outcome of the election. That's fine. That's whatever. I think that is anti-American.
I think that I think that we should look at what I don't know exactly how I'm trying to explain it. What did you say? I'm sorry. Anyways, questioning an election is not anti-American.
You're right. Questioning the election isn't anti-American. Good thing I didn't say that.
Well, you said there was no fraud also, and then you agreed later that there was fraud.
Can you tell me why I'm saying that Trump is anti-American?
The only thing I can think is that like you want the Democrats to win.
No, just restate what I said. Restate why I said that Donald Trump is anti-American.
Because he was trying to not certify electoral votes from certain states.
And
have them recounted towards him.
No, not have them recounted towards him. Have Mike Pence unilaterally choose his electors. Recounts play no part in this.
But he can't do that, so it doesn't matter.
You're right. He can't do any of it because it's illegal. Because it's not laid out in the Electoral Count Act. He can't put a pause on it either. That's illegal.
So, but still, so you're saying like asking a question?
No. Not asking a question. Making a demand for your vice president to break the law.
How do you know that he demanded him of him? How do you know he wasn't asking him? Hey,
because we have testimony from Mike Pence's lawyers to say that they were.
Yeah, maybe they fucking lied.
Holy shit, dude.
Okay. You realize that if you testify, if they find that you're lying, you go to jail.
Dude, how many people testify in Congress, and then we find out later that they lied, and they don't do shit about it?
That's not how that works.
I just don't. Okay. Do you want to move on to the next one?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to move on past
Okay.
this whole thing.
I just wanted to make
trying
sure
do
you
earlier.
knew what I was saying. That's all I wanted to do. Okay.
I'm with you. I feel like we can agree to disagree.
No, I don't feel like we should agree to disagree because I think what you're saying is anti-American, but it's okay because I know we're not getting anywhere.
I feel like that's a personal attack.
I don't think it's a personal attack. I think whenever we're justifying the vice president throwing out electoral votes for hunches of election fraud, that is anti-American. But let's move on. Okay. So let's talk about Donald Trump wanting to denaturalize people who are born here via executive action.
Okay.
Contrary to the 14th Amendment.
And what you're saying is that that's unconstitutional.
Correct.
Correct. I agree, 100%.
Okay.
I do understand where it's coming from in the sense of like, having you become a citizen, right?
Yep.
And then making your family citizens and then bringing over the rest of your family slowly is like where that was coming from. So I get that aspect of it as well. But I know that constitutionally, like if you're born here, you're an American.
Okay. So we agree that that was against the Constitution, that he wants to do that. He wants to do that with executive action, which is contrary to the Constitution.
Let me see.
You can read the 14th Amendment. I can read you the
agreeing
14th Amendment right now.
Okay.
So all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state they reside.
Right.
That's Section 1 of the 14th Amendment.
Okay, but that is for the person born here, correct?
Correct.
What about their mom?
Their mom would not be a citizen, but I'm not talking about their mom. I'm talking about Donald Trump wanting to end birthright citizenship via executive order.
I mean, I don't know that you can necessarily do that in the first place, but either
He can't
way,
because it's against the Constitution.
how it is something that is maybe being abused in the sense that you're trying to have your child in America in order to get them the citizenship that you can tether off of.
Can we agree that Donald Trump wanting to end birthright citizenship via executive order would be against the 14th Amendment?
Yes.
Okay, that's all we need to agree on. Okay. So let's move on to the next one. So
I don't
Donald
think that it makes you an American.
Okay. So Donald Trump tweeted out or posted on Truth Social on December 3rd, 2020. Let me see.
Okay.
Let me make 100% sure though. Son of a bitch.
Is that again? That's your phone ringing like that?
No, it's the TikTok Studio
like
app.
the
I don't even know why it did it that time. It just senses that I'm not here, but I'm like, I've been talking the whole time. I don't know how else to prove that I'm here.
I don't know. Maybe I gotta let me like it or something.
Thanks. I don't think that's gonna do it, but I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
I'll
Anyway.
like it. Whatever, dude. You're entertaining me. I don't care.
Uh,
Hit a like a few times.
Son of a bitch. I can't find the date on this post. He deleted it, by the way. So even he agrees that it probably wasn't the way to go. Okay. So I'm just going to read the post. We know there was around December 2021 or 2022. Okay. So Donald Trump posts on Truth Social. So, with the revelation of massive and widespread fraud and deception and working closely with big tech companies, the DNC, and the Democratic Party, do you throw the presidential election results of 2020 out and declare the rightful winner, or do you have a new election? A massive fraud of this type and magnitude allows for the termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution. So, do you think that Donald Trump was right to float terminating the Constitution to overturn the results of the 2020 election?
I believe he was floating an idea of
Terminating the Constitution.
Not the Constitution.
Yes.
Terms in the Constitution.
No, all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution.
I have a question though. Like,
Yeah.
all these rules were made. It went like 18.
Please do not justify terminating the Constitution before acknowledging that that is what he wants to do,
I don't think that's what he wants to do.
even though he said it explicitly.
What?
He said it explicitly. A massive fraud of this type allows for the termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution. So you don't think he wants to do that, even though he said explicitly that it would justify it.
That it would justify eluding those rules that are for voting, right?
Right.
Because of the fact that there was fraud found.
So do you approve of that?
And I mean, it wouldn't be the first time that the Constitution has had rules, not the entire Constitution. And no, I think that we should follow the Constitution. Absolutely. And that's not where I was going with that. What I was going to say is that the rules made for voting were based before voting machines existed.
Okay.
Before there was mail-in ballots, back when you had to go like write your fucking name on a piece of paper and stick it in a jar.
So you acknowledge that no other part of the U.S. government or the respective state governments found election fraud. So what you are arguing right now is that the president should be able to terminate the Constitution to rerun the election with no official findings of fraud, right?
To rerun it? Well, no, there was official findings of fraud.
Of massive and widespread fraud.
Well, and we can argue about how much fraud there was, but
would you say that the president would be right to rerun the election even though no massive and widespread fraud was found, and to terminate the Constitution in order to do it? Okay, so why do you support him even though he said he wanted to do that?
Again, I think it's coming from a place of just saying things, of like, let's question it.
Did he just say it for fun? Did he say it because he doesn't actually want to do it and he just wanted to like fuck with people?
He wants you to question it. He wants you to question the election. What I want to know is why is this person saying I need to deposit money to talk to you?
Who?
I don't know. Just a side note. I'm asking you.
Who's saying you have to deposit money to talk to me?
I don't fucking know. Some guy on here.
They're trying to scam you.
Okay, that makes sense.
So
maybe that's
ignore
why
them.
Maybe the alarm keeps going off. That's why.
No, it's not that. But if you DM, I think my DM should be open. If you DM me a username, I'll investigate that.
Dude, if I see it again, I will.
Okay, because that's crazy. Unless it was like something else. But I don't want anybody getting scammed.
No, definitely not. Okay. Anyways.
Okay. So.
Where were we?
That Donald Trump said that with the revelation of massive fraud, that we should be able to throw the election results out and declare the rightful winner, and that a massive fraud of that type would justify the termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution. So is he saying that because he wants to terminate the Constitution to rerun the election, or is he saying that to fuck with people and he's just like wildly immature and is fine with floating the idea of terminating the Constitution even though he's a potential president?
No, I think that he's saying it in a sense of like, you need to investigate this, and maybe we need some new laws. Maybe we need to amend the Constitution.
Well, if he meant amend, why would he say terminate?
Well, I mean, if you're changing one rule, right, do you get rid of an old rule? Is that possible?
If he meant amend, why would he say terminate all rules, regulations, and articles?
Well, I think that we're into like...
He literally said terminate.
If you're going to say we're into semantics, it's because you are bringing us here, because I'm going based off of explicitly what he said.
Well, I get what you're saying, but I also...
What I'm saying is what he is saying.
Look at it without saying like such a fine-lined, everything is exactly what you say. Like, if you say fuck this, are you gonna go like stick your dick in it? No.
No, but I'm not going to say, hey, we should terminate all rules, regulations, and articles, even those in the Constitution, and mean fuck this. Like, you're not going to mean the exact opposite of what you say. Like, he's saying it in very clear English. Terminate all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution.
Whoa. Well, if I can get this here to let me. So the amendment, it looks like the amendment that you're referring to was amended.
Which one? The 14th?
No. The format.
Oh my. Okay, wait. Hold on. I think I know what you're talking about. Are you talking about the Electoral Count Act of 2022?
Right.
Yeah, that's not a constitutional amendment.
Right. So it says that they.
It's just a piece of legislation that they updated.
Removed blah 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 in order to that each state has the fucking entitled to privileges and immunities.
Yeah. So it laid out. The
crime took place.
It specified what we were already doing with the Electoral Count Act to prevent people from like Donald Trump from trying to read into the spaces.
Well, right, but so he questioned something and said, like, "Hey, maybe."
But the problem is that the lawyer who was trying to get him to question these things, as you want to put it, already said in his memo that it would diverge from the procedures laid out in the Electoral Count Act. He already said that in the memo. If you look up the Eastman memo, it says in the memo, this is where we diverge from the processes laid out in the act.
So this lawyer said that because
John Eastman, who Donald Trump called the greatest constitutional lawyer in America on January 6th. And who wrote this Eastman memo and who drafted the plan of the false electors for Donald Trump. And that was disseminated to the entire Trump campaign.
Right.
Right.
So his lawyer is the one that actually got this amended.
No. His lawyer is the one who tried to game it, knowing that it would break the Electoral Count Act, and then afterwards they were like, oh shit, we have people trying to fuck with this, even though they know exactly what's in it, and so they added clarifying language. That's it.
I like that. He tried to game it, and it sounds like he did game it.
Well, first of all, no, he did not game it because Mike Pence refused to go through with what they were asking him to do, and he tried to game it knowing that it would break the Electoral Count Act.
Which they later amended, which would make him within...
But it was a violation of the Electoral Count Act before they amended it, though.
Right, so at the time of him saying it, it was against the amendment.
And it still is.
It looks like they changed it to make it to where it's not.
Okay, so can you find me anywhere in the Electoral Count Act of 2022 where it says that the vice president can make the unilateral determination as to which electors are certified? Because I've read both Electoral Count Acts, and it doesn't say it anywhere in that. What they were trying to do is amendment to keep what Donald Trump was trying to do from happening.
Ask Pence to certify the election or something. What am I trying to find?
I was asking you a rhetorical question. I've read the Electoral Count Act. I've read the Electoral Count Act, the Electoral Count Reform Act, I think is what it's called. Neither of them lay out what Donald Trump was trying to do. Both of them explicitly say that that's not allowed. It's just that the first one was more broad, and the Reform Act is more precise in what the process is. And to the people in the comments saying that it's in the Constitution, you just don't know what you're talking about. That's it.
I mean, that's fair. That's why I'm trying to read it at the same time that you're talking about it.
Which the first Electoral Count Act is a lot of really dense legalese. I don't remember if the second one is as bad.
No, it reads fair. Congressional certification, proceeding approach, and other efforts to impair, obstruct, and defeat the federal government function has failed, and
I know that generally the Reform Act clarified the powers of the vice president in the joint session and changed the way that senators can object to electors.
Okay.
I think that's it. But none of it would allow what Donald Trump was trying to do.
Right. But I mean, in a sense of after the reform, I think that you maybe could.
And no, it's the exact opposite, where they reformed it to explicitly disallow what Donald Trump was trying to do.
7.5 pages specifically deal with the defendant's attempts to enlist the vice president fraudulently. But if you look at the conversation that they were having, it's like, hey, don't forget to, don't forget to not, my phone's ringing. Hold on.
Somebody says, why amend anything? The reason that you want to amend the Electoral Count Act is that people like Donald Trump tried to game the original one because of the broad language. So you would specify the language. It's very simple.
Well, I mean, and again, I would argue that there, kind of like I was saying, like with like the hand counting or whatever, but I do think that we need a new way of counting votes. There's no reason that it should take this long. And there's no reason that that there should be any fraud.
But we are walking off of. So okay, Donald Trump.
That's why to amend something,
Donald Trump. He didn't say amend though. He said terminate. He said termination.
I was answering the why amend anything.
If you want to propose amendments, you can do it until the cows come home, as long as it follows the process by which we do that. But Donald Trump didn't say amend. He said terminate.
Do you not terminate amendments? Not all of them.
You don't terminate all rules, regulations, and articles in the Constitution.
Well, no, obviously not.
Okay, well then why did he say it?
Well, obviously because you can only have so many letters on Twitter or whatever.
It was Truth Social. His own social media platform. And also, terminate and amend, there's less letters in amend than there is terminate.
That's fair argument, sir. Fair argument there.
I mean,
somebody said shake my head, not as many letters. Thanks, Liza. Thanks for the backup, dog.
I feel like it just feels like people are so willing to do backflips to defend everything that Donald Trump says, but this is all so fucking insane.
I feel like I'm like defending it in a sense of like that's like what you wanted to do was to like have me argue his side of it. Ultimately, like I think there's like wrong on all the sides. Okay, and I don't think that questioning anything should ever be the wrong thing.
That's so true. I don't either.
Like I think like you question everything.
Okay, but you know that I'm not saying we can't question anything, right? That's not what I'm saying. I think you should. I think you are completely allowed to question the election. I said that with Donald Trump. I said that with George Bush. I said that with Hillary Clinton. The problem is that he was trying to. No, I'm not arguing against him looking for fraud. I'm arguing against him trying to throw election results out, even though no fraud was found.
There was fraud found. You keep saying there's no fraud. There just wasn't a lot.
What I obviously mean is that there was no outcome determinative fraud.
Oh, so are you meaning something else besides what you're saying? So is it?
Yes, but it's very easy to make that jump. If you can tell me what Donald Trump meant by terminate all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution, if you want to tell me what he actually meant by that isn't like a wildly huge
Constitution of voting rules that were made before that there was mail-in or electronic voting, then yes, that's what he meant.
But that's not what he meant. That's obviously not what he meant, because it'd be really easy to say that.
Well, then I would say that you obviously mean that there was absolutely zero voter fraud when you really mean...
Even though I have already made that clarification like 6 different times, and Donald Trump never clarified anything, right?
Well, we don't have Donald Trump here to ask him.
Donald Trump never clarified anything. It's not like it's not like this Truth Social post is like never covered by anybody ever. He's had plenty of times to answer to this post, and he never has.
I mean, I guess, but again, like I said, he's not here to defend himself when you are. And all I'm saying is that, yeah, what you're saying, I'm accepting what you're saying.
Are you saying that the president, the active president-elect, doesn't have the platform to defend himself from this post? Is that what you're telling me?
No, I'm saying nobody asked about it.
Nobody asked him about this.
What was his response?
Let's see.
I mean, and like, I'm getting my secretary to Google it now. Don't worry.
Because I'm pretty sure. I mean, I don't have his verbatim quote, but I'm pretty sure the response I've heard is that like they say that I want to terminate the Constitution, and then he just kind of like brushes it off, even though that is explicitly what he said.
The date on the post was what? It was like
I
December.
don't remember. It's December 2022, around there.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I'm gonna let somebody else up because I think we've.
I just don't see how it's like not un-American. I mean, ultimately, like at the end of the day, if somebody's flying an American flag in their front yard, you know who they voted for. If somebody's
they probably voted Democrat.
True.
You have an American flag in your front yard?
But let's.
I do fly it. I fly the American flag.
Yeah.
In my
Also,
bedroom, and I have a shitload of flags.
Fuck yeah, that's good. I love to hear it.
I fly the American flag. It's
awesome.
Democrats are patriotic, but the problem is that I've never heard a Democrat say that we should terminate the Constitution to rerun the election. I've never seen them try to use. I've never seen them try to break federal law to get themselves to be the president again.
Here's a better example. When someone flies the Confederate flag, you know exactly who they voted for.
True.
That's not true.
That's true. All right. Well,
the flag was Democrats.
No, it wasn't.
So I'm gonna let somebody else up.
Okay.
I appreciate you, Rhino. This has been something. I appreciate you coming up. Fun, I hope you have a good day. I hope you
too.
I hope you respect America.
I'll give you a follow.
Thank you. All right. I'll talk to you probably at some point.